It was supposed to be a normal Sunday morning soccer match. Families watching, kids laughing, the sky was blue. But within seconds, everything changed. A deafening roar. A shadow covered the field. And then, a 200-ton cargo ship came crashing out of nowhere. One man, trapped beneath twisted steel and wreckage, would survive the impossible. This is his story. Chapter 1. A Perfect Morning. It was June 12, 2024. In the coastal city of Rosario Bay, a quiet port town known for its shipyards and scenic coastline. At precisely 9:45 a.m., the local soccer field, just 2 blocks inland from the shoreline, was alive with energy. Dozens of players from the community had gathered for the weekend match. Spectators lined the edge of the grass. Kids sold lemonade near the entrance gate. Among them was David Carillo, a 33-year-old high school science teacher. He wasn't playing that day. He was coaching his nephew's team. A kind, thoughtful man, David lived just a few blocks away. He had grown up near the docks and knew the rhythms of the port. David smiled as he watched his nephew tie his cleats, the boy full of excitement. "This is your day," he said, ruffling his hair. The moment felt warm. Perfect. The kind you never think could vanish in an instant. But this morning, something felt off. The air seemed heavy. Birds flew low, and David noticed something strange on the horizon. A massive ship drifting closer to shore than usual. Chapter 2. The first sign from the field. You could see the upper parts of the industrial cranes from the shipping yard. Normally, ships move slowly and predictably along the water's edge. But now, a rust-red cargo ship, the MV Helios King, was pointed straight inland. At first, no one noticed. The music was playing. Parents were cheering. David, however, couldn't shake the unease in his gut. The ship wasn't just drifting. It looked aimless, as if no one was steering. That's what unnerved David the most. It reminded him of a memory. The time he saw a runaway truck barrel down a highway. This had that same kind of doom. Suddenly, the referee blew his whistle. Not for the game, but out of panic. A thundering metallic scream echoed through the port. And then, above the rooftops, the bow of the Helios King appeared. That was impossible. Ships don't just drive inland. But it was happening. Chapter 3. The crash. The cargo ship didn't just drift. It smashed its way through the port barricades, hit the marina, crushed smaller boats, and plowed forward, straight toward the field. Screams broke out. Chaos erupted. Some people ran, others froze. David turned, grabbed his nephew, and screamed for everyone to get off the field. In a matter of seconds, the massive bow of the ship tore through a concrete wall behind the bleachers and slammed into the far end of the soccer field. The impact was apocalyptic. Steel groaned, trees cracked like twigs, debris flew in every direction. One of the older spectators cried out, "It's coming straight for us." The ground trembled as the bow slammed into the fence, sending a shockwave across the field. A young girl screamed for her father, then vanished behind the dust. A giant container flung from the deck mid-impact, crashing into the stands where David had just been standing. He was thrown backward by the blast of wind and debris. When he opened his eyes, everything was dust, and fire, and silence. Chapter 4. Trapped beneath the wreckage, David was pinned under a collapsed section of metal fencing, partially protected by a chunk of concrete. His left leg was badly injured, twisted beneath a broken steel beam. Couldn't see much, just shadows, smoke, and the flicker of small fires. All around him, moans, screams, and the creaking of the massive ship echoed across the field. The pain was unbearable, but David clenched his teeth, focused on breathing. In, out. Like he had taught his students during lockdown drills. One breath at a time, he whispered to himself over and over. He tried yelling. Nothing came out. His throat was dry, filled with dust. In those moments, David knew one thing. He had to stay awake. If he blacked out, he might never wake up again. Chapter 5. Flashbacks and willpower. Hours passed. In that crushed, confined space, David's mind drifted. He thought of his wife Lonnie, his students, his father, a former dock worker, who had taught him how to stay calm in chaos. He remembered the old lessons. If you're ever in danger, assess, breathe, survive. His wedding day, the laughter of his students, the smell of Lonnie's pancakes, all came back to him. These images weren't just memories, they were anchors. They reminded him why he needed to survive. Using a piece of torn metal, he tried to shift the beam off his leg. It took everything he had. Pain surged through his body, but the beam moved. Blood poured from a deep gash on his calf, but he didn't stop. Chapter 6. Help from above. By late afternoon, helicopters hovered above the crash site. Rescuers were swarming what was left of the field, but it was a disaster zone. Containers had exploded. Parts of the ship were on fire. Toxic chemicals leaked into the grass. David had no way to signal them. His voice was too weak. But then, a sound. Someone walking on the twisted hull near him. He slammed a rock against the metal beam. Clang, clang, clang. The faint hum of rotor blades felt like salvation. As he banged the metal, he thought, if they can hear me, I have a chance. His hand bled with each strike, but he kept going. Bang, bang, bang. A voice shouted, "Hey! We got one alive down here." Chapter 7 pulled from the ashes. Firefighters and emergency responders dug for 45 minutes through layers of debris to reach him. David was barely conscious when they pulled him free. He had a shattered leg, broken ribs, and internal bleeding. But he was alive. "You're okay," a medic told him as they wrapped his leg. David didn't feel okay. He felt broken. But when he saw his nephew waiting beside the ambulance, face streaked with tears, he knew it had all been worth it. Out of over 60 people on the field that day, 11 died. David was the last survivor rescued. As medics carried him to the ambulance, he whispered, "Check the stands, my nephew, please." His nephew had made it out, thanks to David's warning. Chapter 8. The truth behind the crash. In the weeks that followed, investigations revealed what caused the impossible event. The MV Helios King had suffered a catastrophic navigation system failure combined with engine issues. An inexperienced crew had overridden safeguards, misreading the controls. As the ship lost control, no one realized its momentum would carry it more than 800 meters past the shoreline. The hearings went on for months. Ship owners, engineers, and harbor officials pointed fingers. David testified from his hospital bed. "This wasn't just an accident," he said. "It was negligence, and it can never happen again. It was a once-in-a-century disaster, a domino effect of poor maintenance, budget cuts, and human error." David would spend 6 months recovering, but he became something more than a survivor. He became a voice for safety reform across global ports. To this day, David Carillo walks with a slight limp, a daily reminder of the disaster no one could have predicted. But he walks, he speaks, and every Sunday, he still visits the rebuilt field, now named Carillo Park. What happened that day was unthinkable, but David's courage, calm, and refusal to give up inspired a city, and maybe that's the real story here. It's not just the crash, but the survival. If this survival story moved you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell for more incredible, true life tales. Disclaimer: this story is based on real maritime and human survival events, but the characters and situations have been fictionalized for narrative purposes. Any similarities to actual persons or events are purely coincidental. Stay safe, stay curious, and thank you for watching.